Jennifer woke up at 3:17 in the morning because she felt it. Not a sound. Not a movement. Just the unmistakable sensation of being watched. When she opened her eyes, her husband was standing 2 feet from the bed. Motionless. His face pointed directly at her. In the darkness, she could barely make out his features, but she could see his eyes. They were open. Wide open. Staring. She didn't scream. Something in her throat locked. Instead, she whispered his name. David. He didn't move. Didn't blink. Just stood there in his pajamas like a statue. 4-5 full seconds. Then, slowly, he turned and walked back to his side of the bed. Lay down. Closed his eyes. The next morning, Jennifer asked him about it. And what he told her made her realize she'd been sleeping next to a stranger for 8 years. Jennifer and David Grant had been together for 10 years. Married for 8. They met at a university library in Seattle. He was studying architecture. She was finishing her psychology degree. Their relationship moved slowly. Carefully. David wasn't the spontaneous type. He planned dates weeks in advance. Remembered anniversaries. Never raised his voice. Jennifer's friends called him perfect. Maybe too perfect. But Jennifer loved his steadiness. After years of dating emotionally chaotic men, David felt like safety. They got married in a small ceremony in Victoria. Honeymooned in Japan. Bought a condo in Capitol Hill. David built his career at a firm downtown. Jennifer opened a private therapy practice. They had routines. Sunday farmers market. Wednesday date nights. Friday morning coffee in bed. Everything was structured. Predictable. Jennifer thought that's what healthy love looked like. Consistency. Trust. No surprises. But on the morning after she woke up to find him staring at her, David sat at the kitchen table and said something that shattered that illusion. He said, "I do that every night." Jennifer stared at him. Every night? David nodded. Since the wedding night. He'd wake up around 3 a.m. Get out of bed. Stand there. And watch her sleep. For 10 minutes. Sometimes 15. Then go back to bed. Jennifer's first thought was clinical. She'd studied sleep disorders. Parasomnia. Sleepwalking. Night terrors. But David said no. He was fully awake. Fully conscious. It wasn't a disorder. It was intentional. Jennifer asked the obvious question. Why? David looked at his hands. He said he needed to make sure she was real. That confused her. Real? He explained. When he was 7 years old, his mother left. Just disappeared one morning while he was at school. No note. No explanation. His father told him she'd gone to visit family. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. She never came back. David didn't find out the truth until he was 13. His mother hadn't left. She'd died. Sudden brain aneurysm. His father had lied because he didn't know how to explain death to a child. So David spent 6 years believing his mother had abandoned him. When he finally learned she was dead, something in him broke. He couldn't trust permanence anymore. Even now, at 34, a part of him believed that people he loved could vanish without warning. David said the watching started on their wedding night. They'd fallen asleep around midnight. He woke at 3. Turned his head. Saw Jennifer beside him. And felt panic. Not joy. Panic. Because his brain told him this was temporary. That she'd be gone by morning. So he got up. Stood there. And watched her breathe. It calmed him. Proof she existed. Proof she was still there. The next night, he did it again. And the night after that. It became a ritual. Every single night for 8 years, David would wake up, stand over Jennifer's sleeping body, and watch her for 10 to 15 minutes. He said it wasn't romantic. It wasn't sexual. It was survival. A compulsion. He tried to stop. But the one time he didn't do it, he had a panic attack so severe he vomited. Jennifer listened to all of this in silence. Part of her understood. She was a therapist. She knew trauma. She knew how it rewired the brain. But another part of her felt violated. She'd been surveilled in her most vulnerable state for 8 years without knowing. That wasn't love. That was control. For the next week, Jennifer couldn't sleep. Every night, she'd lie there with her eyes closed, hyper-aware of every sound. Waiting. Around 3 a.m., she'd hear it. The shift of weight on the mattress. The soft pad of bare feet on hardwood. Then nothing. Just the sensation of being watched. She wanted to open her eyes. Confront him. But something stopped her. Fear. Curiosity. She didn't know. Instead, she started testing him. One night, she shifted positions dramatically at 2:50. Rolled over. Faced his side of the bed. When 3 a.m. came, he still got up. Stood on his side. Adjusted his angle so he could see her face. Another night, she pretended to wake up. Mumbled something incoherent. He froze. Waited until she settled. Then continued watching. It wasn't just observation. It was a need. And that terrified her. Because if David needed this ritual to function, what happened if she disrupted it? Would he break? Would she? Jennifer convinced David to see someone. Not her, obviously. A colleague. Dr. Milton Chen specialized in attachment trauma. David agreed to go. But only if Jennifer came to one session. Dr. Chen asked David to describe the ritual. David did. Calmly. Methodically. Like he was describing a morning routine. Dr. Chen asked if David had ever touched Jennifer during these moments. David said no. Never. That would wake her. The point was to observe. To confirm. Dr. Chen turned to Jennifer. Asked how this made her feel. Jennifer said violated. Then corrected herself. She said it made her feel like an object. Something to be checked on. Verified. Not a partner. David flinched. He said that wasn't his intention. He loved her. Dr. Chen asked a different question. He asked David, what do you think would happen if Jennifer wasn't there one night? David's answer was immediate. He said he'd assume she left. That the marriage was over. That he'd done something wrong. Even if she was just traveling. Even if she'd told him in advance. The absence would trigger the same abandonment response he'd felt at 7 years old. Dr. Chen suggested exposure therapy. Gradual separation. Start small. One night, Jennifer would sleep in the guest room. David would practice tolerating her absence. Build trust that she'd still be there in the morning. David agreed to try. The first night, Jennifer set up in the guest room. She told David where she'd be. Kissed him goodnight. Closed the door. At 3 a.m., she heard footsteps in the hallway. They stopped outside her door. She waited. The door didn't open. But she could see the shadow of his feet under the gap. He stood there for 20 minutes. Then went back to the bedroom. In the morning, David looked exhausted. He said he'd almost opened the door. Almost checked. But he stopped himself. Jennifer asked how it felt. David said it felt like drowning. Like his chest was caving in. But he survived. That was progress. They tried again the next week. This time, David lasted 10 minutes outside her door instead of 20. The week after, 5 minutes. Slowly, painfully, he was learning to let go. 3 months into therapy, Jennifer had a work conference in Portland. Overnight trip. She'd be gone for one night. David said he could handle it. He'd practiced. He had tools. Breathing exercises. Dr. Chen's number on speed dial. Jennifer left on a Thursday morning. Called him that night from her hotel. He sounded fine. Tired, but fine. She went to bed around 11. Her phone rang at 3:20 a.m. It was David. He was hyperventilating. Said he couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Jennifer tried to calm him down. Walked him through the exercises. It didn't work. He said he needed to see her. Needed proof. Jennifer didn't know what to do. She was 3 hours away. She couldn't just appear. So she did the only thing she could think of. She turned on her phone's camera. FaceTimed him. Showed him her face. The hotel room behind her. Proof she existed. Proof she was coming back. David stared at the screen. His breathing slowly steadied. He watched her for 15 minutes. Just like he did every night at home. Then he said thank you. And hung up. After that night, Jennifer had a realization. This wasn't about David fixing himself. It was about her deciding what she could live with. Because the truth was, David might never fully stop. The ritual might evolve. Become less frequent. Less intense. But the core fear, the terror of abandonment, that was wired into him. It wasn't going away. So Jennifer had to ask herself a question she'd been avoiding. Could she spend the rest of her life with someone who needed to verify her existence every night? Was that love? Or was it imprisonment? She thought about her clients. The ones trapped in relationships with partners who had untreated trauma. How she'd always told them, you can't save someone who's drowning if they're pulling you under. But this was different. David wasn't pulling her under. He was just, holding on. Too tight. Desperately. And she didn't know if letting go was cruel or necessary. Jennifer is still with David. It's been 2 years since that first night she woke up and found him watching. He still does it. But now it's different. Now she knows. And sometimes, when she feels him standing there at 3 a.m., she opens her eyes. Looks at him. And says, I'm here. I'm still here. David nods. Says thank you. Goes back to bed. It's not perfect. It's not what she imagined marriage would be. But it's honest. And maybe that's enough. Or maybe it's not. Jennifer doesn't know yet. But she's learned something important. Love isn't always about healing each other. Sometimes it's just about witnessing each other's pain. And deciding whether you can carry it. Together. Even when it's heavy. Even when it keeps you awake at night. Watching. Waiting. Making sure the person you love is still real.